Well. How's it going, guys? No, it's been a while. Sorry for the absence. Been a bit hectic, but I'm sure you guys all understand that. Before we dive into this, don't forget all the usual housekeeping stuff. Please hit a thumbs up if you like this video. I'm hoping to make a series, which I will be teasing to you or breaking down in a moment. But we're going to start with goalies today. But I'm hoping to make this full series, and it would really help motivate me to see that you guys are enjoying the content. I'm trying to put this out in ahead, do something a little different than what other channels are talking about. Obviously, it's not transfer time, so we'll try to keep things fresh. Obviously, we've got another international break coming up, so plenty of time to get some stuff out during that lull as well. But like I said, hit that thumbs up if you're liking it. Please subscribe to NFT Extra if you haven't already. If you didn't know about Newcastle Fans TV, head over there, subscribe there as well, because there's plenty of content at our primary channel. And also keep up to date with all kinds of good stuff with Joe, Dale, and Lee for the Lasses, Academy players, and some other local Northeast football. So let's get into it. Like I said, today I want to kick off a series of breaking down by position my thoughts on where we should go and kind of, who is our current number one? Do I think, we can continue to build on this, so on and so forth? Like I said, we're going to start with the goalkeepers today, and we'll slowly work our way up to the strikers. So, without any further ado, I put together some stuff. Hopefully, you find this data. I tried to keep it succinct. I didn't want to bore you with stats, but I also wanted to try and bring some data and information to kind of back up my opinions. Again, I don't ever claim to be the most football knowledgeable, but I do find a lot of times when I do look at sometimes the data, a lot of times it jives with what I feel like my eyes see or my gut tells me. So let's start with the question, who's number one going forward? And I'll answer that at the end to see if there's going to be a change. But I would argue at this present moment in time, our current number one is one Nicholas Pope. So, as you can see, just some highlights since he's come to us back in 22-23 season. He's played quite a number of games. Obviously, that 23-24 season a bit reduced because of the shoulder injury that he sustained, but he's been very important. You look at per FB ref some of the goalies that he is apparently similar to. Obviously, Ariza Vayaga may trigger some memories to people. Mike Mignon, someone I like to see on that list. David Raya, someone I like to see on that list. Joan Garcia, who we saw in person. Another good one on the list, Unai Simon, another solid keeper. So some good company that he's being supposedly compared against. Obviously, you can see his stats or his attributes, his height, weight, yada, yada. I won't bore you with that. And apparently he's on $60K a week per Capology. Obviously, a lot of that's speculation. But I would say, first things first, he is our current number one. And I think so far this season, by and large, he has proven why he is our number one and performed admirably, doing what, in my opinion, is the most important thing that any keeper should be doing. A keeper's first priority is to keep the ball out of the net. I know many people are big into the distribution and things like that, and I'm not here to say that it's not important or it's not helpful, but I think we do need to sometimes remember that a lot of times, I'll give the example of just high level. I'm sure many of you might have disagreements or agreements. Look at, if we rewind, I think it was 2 seasons ago when Man United brought in Onana. Everyone thought that was going to be the next evolution for them and what they needed, going from De Gea, who was more of your traditional shot stopper, not necessarily good with his distribution, and that Onana was going to take him to the next level. Now, again, you may have your personal arguments of why Onana is not a good example, and I'm not going to say you're right or wrong. But I'm just saying, if we look at it fundamentally, you got to admit there is an element of it didn't make them any better. So sometimes it's not always the grass is greener on the other side, is what I'm trying to get at. I think, as I've already hit upon, when you look at his pros, he's a great shot stopper. A lot of times, and you'll see this in an upcoming slide, when you look at his shot stopping statistics per FBref, a lot of them are in the 70th and 80th percentile for the last 3 seasons. Now, there was a dip last season. He did not have his best numbers season last year, but he still was pretty consistent in those shot stopping numbers. Also, when you look at things like coming up for claims, punches, and preventing crosses, he's been consistently in the 90th percentile versus goalies in the top 5 leagues. So I think those are important things to keep in mind. Again, is he the complete package? Is he Allison? Is he Ederson? Is he those kind of keepers? No, he is not. However, I think what he does do well is sometimes make a save that he has no business making. Cons. One could argue his age. Now, I will also say, and I think many of you would agree, goalies are a little bit of a different category when it comes to age because the physical demands on a keeper are different. So, yes, I think he's obviously a bit older than we want, but it doesn't mean that he couldn't still perform for a good couple of years at a top level. Obviously, the big thing we've been talking about, though, that many people get frustrated with him is his distribution. He's not very progressive. You're not going to see him kick a ball out and hit someone on a break real quickly, and things like that. One thing in his defense on the distribution, I do think he's a rather good thrower of the ball. He doesn't do it often enough, I would say, but when he does do it, he can often unlock a good breakout off of a throw when done. But it's his biggest knock would be that distribution. For a while there was also some stuff about him diving down to his left. And I think we've seen a little bit of an improvement in that this year. And a lot of that was around the speculation of, like, was he nervous about his shoulder because that's the shoulder he had hurt? But I think we've seen a little bit of an improvement of it. The last big thing is he is notorious for giving us those oh crap kind of moments where he is a bit bold in running out and trying to do things. But that's kind of real quickly, top level, looking at his stats. I mean, obviously, the rash part is no more evident than his time with that red card right before the first Carabao Cup final, famously. Let's move to, I would say, our current number 2. And that would be Mr. Aaron Ramsdale, who's here on loan, currently from Southampton, with an option to buy at the end of the season. Now, what is his pros? I think this is going to be no surprise. I'm not telling you guys probably anything you don't know. That a lot of his strengths is arguably what Pope's weaknesses are. And to a certain extent, kind of his weaknesses kind of tied to where Pope is strengths. So distribution is he's seen as the distribution, that more modern keeper option of trying to help on the breakout. And in all fairness, I think that was evident and seen in the Bradford game. We need to take it with an element of a grain of salt because that is Bradford. But I think it was a good sign. You could see how he worked well with Malik Chow, how he worked well with Sven Botman, who, again, there's an element of we believe that's the long-term future, generally speaking, for our center backs. So that's all good things and good signs. Interestingly enough, though, and I'll show this in a moment, uh, some of his distribution numbers looking very, very positive. I feel like actually, at least how FBref calculates it, were not as reflective in the numbers as I expected to see. Now, in his defense, we're going to get to another keeper that I'll keep secret for now, that I also have thought of as kind of good at distribution, but uh, the numbers on FBref didn't match it. So it might just be the way they track the data. Again, I tried to add a little bit of data to back up my points, but I don't want to go too much. Obviously, his age, I think, is a pro, much younger, just 27, which is easy to forget because it feels like he's been in the league for a while. I mean, I said he's got a good 5 years left in him. To be honest, he could have a good, maybe even almost 10, depending on how seriously he takes his fitness regimes and things like that. And also, we got to remember, as I have shown there, not long ago, he was considered one of the best keepers in the league. In fact, I believe that season before David Raya went to Arsenal and that big hoopla, I believe Aaron Ramsdale was the Golden Glove winner that season. So again, he's got a reputation with it, and I think we got to slightly ignore in some instances his stats from last year because of the team he was playing on, just an absolutely poor Southampton's team. Cons, many have spoken about his some rumors slash confessions of being able to be distracted during the game and things like that, and I mean he self admitted it, I believe. That's obviously something he needs to work on because I think that's one of Pope's strengths. How many times has Pope right out the gate had to make a save, or I think to a game, a couple games in years past where we totally dominate but we don't have that cushion we need. And then Pope's made a vital save at the end of the game to keep the win or keep the draw or things like that. So also swings in performance. As we said, we have seen him drop in performances. So I think there is something to be said there. And that is a little worrisome when you're trying to make a case of should we start building around him as opposed to a Nick Pope. Obviously, you can see those who are his comparators. Interestingly enough, not many keepers that I really recognize, with the exception of Hermansen, which is not necessarily lofty company. And one thing I'll say is I see a lot of even like some German keepers that are not from top German teams, as I have a little bit of knowledge of Bundesliga. So again, that doesn't always mean that they're not good keepers because they're not on a good team, but is a little worrisome. Another thing I want to point out, all things considered, not that I think either of their wages are a massive game breaker for us, but 120K wages with Aaron Ramsdale versus the 60K a week of Nick Pope. Is Aaron Ramsdale a 2 times better keeper? I think that would be a tough argument to try and claim. Now, let's look at them because let's be honest. Yes, I'm going to get into some other guys, but the biggest ones to talk about are Ramsdale and Pope at the moment. So let's look at their numbers side by side on some stuff. As you can see, I just take two seasons, not that way. It wasn't just one singular season. And you can see last season clear differences in Nick Pope's stats are very good for his post-shot XG, which is basically how many saves he's making versus what he'd be expected to make, how many goals against he has, save percentage, penalty kicks, save percentage, clean sheets, things like that. His numbers were astronomically better. And the only real shot keeping metrics that Ramsdale looks good in was his penalty kick saves and his shots on I forget what the difference was between the PSG SOT, but anyways, You can also see very stark differences in the claims down at the bottom, crosses stop, defensive actions outside of the penalty area. As much as those things give us heart attacks sometimes, Nick Pope ranks in the top 98th last season and 83rd the season before. I think those are all positive metrics. But again, giving Ramsdale his credit where it's due, look at the amount of touches, look at the launch percentage, look at the goal kicks, and average length of his goal kicks. Now, again, those are just high level stats. I'm sure there might be people in the audience shouting, well, why not like pass completion, things like that. I'm sure there's metrics like that. I just wanted to kind of keep it succinct. And I think this does illustrate the whole argument. And for me personally, I would argue that when you have this debate, I lean a bit more to Pope because if you want to break this in and just think simplistically, you've got three main categories. You've got two categories which Pope is the superior one, and Ramsdale has one of them. And to me, the two that Pope are more has more strength in, I think, are the more valuable ones as a keeper. But everyone is entitled to their opinion. Please, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Share it in the comments below after the video if you have disagreements or you think I've missed something in this comparison. Now, this is kind of the present state. What else do we have in the goalie situation? Obviously, we've got some third keepers at the moment. And as you can see, with all due respect to them, I think they're basically glorified player coaches. And again, I don't know either of them. This is not meant to be a dig at their character or anything like that. But Ruddy has a lot of experience around the league. I believe, wasn't Ruddy even back with Norwich at one point? Back when Norwich was up in the Prem. Um, I know Ruddy is kind of that journeyman, and I do not begrudge Eddie for wanting that kind of experience in the locker room to talk about maybe situational awareness, game management, things like that. But if that's what you're bringing to the team, I've never played football in any kind of capacity in the team. And please, maybe some of you watching might have played semi-pro or even pro. I don't know. But I just don't understand the argument of if that's what they're bringing, then why not have them as a coach consultant or something of those kind of nature? Because I'm not trying to say they don't bring value. I just don't understand why they're part of the roster. Because I will admit I tend to be more biased that I want my third keepers to probably be someone younger and give them those few chances. Obviously, on the other side hand, we've then got Gillespie, who, again, living out every Geordie's dream, from the area, came up through the academy, got to lift the Carabao Cup as a local. But again, a lot of the reports come out that, he's just kind of the activities coordinator and he just is good for the locker room. And again, there's elements of, I do understand the value of that, but I'm pretty sure there are people that are also on the roster that bring those things. And if you really want him for those kind of attributes, again, why not have him as some sort of consultant or coach or whatever? The clubs are so robust these days. There's plenty of things you can do. So I think it goes without saying, and I don't think many of you would argue, I don't think any of them are the future of where this club needs to be. Let's look at the academy. As I said, I'm biased to the youngsters. But again, I think at this present moment, and again, I will not profess to know a ton about these guys or watch a ton of the academy. It's not always the easiest. But from what I can tell, our main our main two prospects coming up through the system at the moment are Max Thompson and Adam Harrison. And Max Thompson's been with the club for a while. You can see below his playing career stats. I was able to get some more detailed stuff on him, but even that is not a whole lot. I mean, his most significant game time really was with 2 loan spells while with Northampton Town uh, in the 23-24 season, and then many, many years ago in League Two with Chesterfield. But when you look at his Chesterfield stats, nothing really jumps out there. I mean, a save percentage of, I think, 59%, that's not that great. And you look at Northampton, it was a bit better. But again, I don't think anything that's really going to set the world alight and something that we can bank on. But I will say, in the flip side, we're not getting the chance to see him in, say, these games like versus Bradford or whatever, because we have Ramsdale, which is much better, and things like that. So I just don't think they're the answers. I mean, the other big thing, as you can see on Thompson's resume, is back in 2021, he did have a U18 call up, and did play once. But again, it's not been anything more recent. And just, I think, again, they're not the answers at this present moment in time. The only thing that is nice with youngsters is they can blossom at any moment, and who knows. So, I want to bring it to one more category that I'm going to try and do in these videos. And thanks for sticking along with me if you've been here and you're still with me. I'll try to wrap this up. I did go a little bit longer than I thought I would. But who is my outside shout? Now, for many of you who know me, you may think I'm being a bit biased here, and I probably am. As you know, the main other team I follow is Stuttgart. And obviously, I've talked a bit about Voltemada, notably coming from Stuttgart. But one of the other key things over the past 3 seasons with them, that have really sparked this turnaround, in all honesty, very similar to us in Newcastle. If we rewind 4 seasons ago, Stuttgart in the Bundesliga was in the relegation playoffs. So I'm sure you guys are kind of familiar. Some leagues do that. We won that relegation playoff to remain in the league. That next season, we went from nearly being relegated to getting second place in the league, beating Bayern in the table. The only team that we didn't really have, and we played very good against Leverkusen in that undefeated season. But he's been there now. He's in present. This would be his 3rd season now at Stuttgart, and he's been a big part of that turnaround for them because he's a pretty solid shot stopper, but he also has the distribution. Now, again, I know you may be looking at that chart down there, and this is why I was saying I do find it a bit interesting because my eyes, as well as even Ramsdale's numbers, when you load back to Ramsdale's numbers, I think he's been known for being good at distributing more than just one season, as Ramsdale's numbers shown. And same with Nübel. I picked just last season's numbers, and I feel like that those numbers are not as reflective. I mean, Stuttgart did have a slight regression season last year in league play, so some of his numbers might have been slightly dipped. But you can go and look it up. Just not this past week or 2 weeks ago, in the Europa League, which they're in this season, Alexander Nübel literally off of a kick hit a player on stride, a striker in stride, went in, scored. So he has that in his locker, just like Ramsdale has. As you can also see, his age is quite comparable to Ramsdale, and he, I think, will need another opportunity. As I mentioned, he's actually technically a Bayern player. He's been on loan at Stuttgart all this time because Manuel Neuer continues to be in the net. So I think there's an opportunity to maybe get him and could be an outside shout that might be a bit less money than, say, even Ramsdale, because Ramsdale does have a little bit of pedigree, as we said, and might come with a little bit of a price tag. So just an outside shot thought of someone who we could go to. And again, if you rewind, I mean, he would be at this moment around the age of probably what Nick Pope was around the time we got him. So just one of the outside shots and thoughts I had. Um, I think a big asset and could be a steady keeper, but that may not cost us a fortune, like going out for the Marmadishvilis that were rumored a couple years ago, or the James Traffords, or things like that. Not that I don't think those guys would have been good value for money. I'm just saying sometimes there are keepers like this that I think could be good options as well. Well, I have gone on quite a bit, and I hope you stick with me. I hope you enjoyed it. Like I said, if you did, please hit that thumbs up. It helps out the channel exponentially. It helps me know that you've enjoyed the content. Again, let me know your thoughts, especially if you go to Academy games and you've seen more of the Academy players. Maybe there's someone else I'm missing, because for some reason I feel like there's another young keeper I've been hearing about, and for some reason those names are not ringing with the keeper that I've been hearing about. So let me know if there's someone else. Let me know who your outside pick would be. I'd love to hear it. Please, again, hit those notification bells so you don't miss any content. I'm going to try and get out the right back video later in the week, and we'll try and get one every couple days for you guys and over the next week or so until we get through the whole roster. Again, please smash that like button if you can. It's much appreciated, and we'll talk to you very, very soon.